this is my review of Assassination Classroom. Okay, so in this episode, Class 3E it has to now excel at the finals for the first term, and in addition to that, we're introduced to the Big Five of Kunigigaoka Junior High, who I will get to in a minute. So it starts off with Korosensei tutoring the students in the woods near where their satellite campus is set. And while he's tutoring them, Nagisa asks him if he's going to up and leave, like he said he would at the midterms. But Korosensei points out no, that was nearsighted of him, and that he's not going to try and make that kind of deal again. Instead, he points out a different deal. Senshiro pointed out a very notable weakness of his, how he gets slower with every tentacle taken out. He offers them a counter solution. Get the top spot per class, and each student will be given the permission to take out one tentacle, which will reduce his speed significantly and enable them to finally kill him. And of course, that's a good enough reason as any for them to actually want to go out and actually try their best. However, as they're studying, Sugino actually gets a call from Shindo. You remember, the baseball captain, and he points out and he gives them a bit of a warning before hanging up. As it turns out, the Big Five, as I said, the Big Five. Well, basically, all you need to know about the Big Five are that they are the best students in the entire school, hence their name. They excel while they didn't place top in all of the subjects, they're specifically the best in some of the harder subjects in the school, and some of the more great heavy subjects, the ones that'll really excel, get you a job when you're older. And to make matters worse, the leader is Gakuho Asano's only son, Gakishu Asano, and basically he not only is he the leader of the group, but he's also basically the best at everything, and he's able to lead the Big Five with alarming effectiveness. The Big Five themselves aren't really major characters, but to be honest, I don't really remember their names. All I remember is Gakishu Asano, mainly because he has a major role in this episode and is introduced as one of the secondary antagonists of the show, alongside his father. So for that reason, I remember him. But in any case, Shindo warns them that the Big Five are actually giving a big tutoring session in the student council room, since 3 of the 5 are student council members and have permission to do that. With Gakishu Asano being the president, but basically they're giving a big tutoring session in the council room, and are basically grooming A class to do well at the school. Eventually revealed to be at Gakuho Asano's request of his son. So, and Shindo warns them to be careful, and that they may be gunning to keep them out of the main campus if they fail. So, but Sugino actually points out that that they don't plan to leave class anytime soon, pointing out that there's a personal reason for that. But he points out that he does point out that they'll do their best regardless, and he appreciates the warning. And with that, Shindo hangs up. Meanwhile, Shindo is at Gakishu was actually meeting with his father to discuss their plan. As I said, at Gakuho's request, Gakishu has been grooming Class A to keep Class E out of the top spots, and that's basically their whole plan. Basically, and while Gakishu isn't very worried, Gakuho warns him that if he lets his guard down, the rabble could very easily rise up and take over. And sure enough, Class E in this case is the rabble, so basically it's to keep Class E in line. But in any case, Gakishu points out that he understands the plan perfectly, but then as his son. Then he asks as his son rather than a student, why he's so focused on Class E so much this semester, almost as if he's got something to hide. And sure enough, Gakuto freezes because what he has to hide is indeed Korosensei. And Gakushu even points out that there have been multiple sightings of Korosensei, but nobody really knows who he is or what he is. So, all he knows is that there have been several rumors floating around about Korosensei, namely that people have seen a flying octopus and reported it on the news. People have heard well-endowed young women have heard whispers in the night before turning around and seeing nothing. And probably one of the more damning ones, people have seen a large poorly disguised teacher going into stores and buying huge swaths of junk food before leaving. So Gakushu is very suspicious of Gakuto-san, but Gakuto points out that Gakushu shouldn't ask so many questions, and lest he come back to bite him. And with that they decide to just kind of have a bit of a witty banter about maybe one day surpassing one another, and then with that Gakushu just kind of leaves. So yeah, like father like son, Gakushu Asano is very cunning, much like his father. And it shows because he's able to basically just lead Class A by him single-handedly and help them excel, and he doesn't really need much prompting to do that. But in any case, shortly after the call they get from Shindo, Yuma Isegai asks Nagisa and Kaede if they want to come with him. Ryo Kanzaki and Okudo to go study at the library, pointing out that he reserved a seat for himself a long time ago at the main campus library, and he's been dying to use it, and he figures since they're going through finals, they might as well. So they do. At which point they encounter four of the five members of the Big Five, with the exception of Gakushu for obvious reasons. But in case the Big Five begin giving them a bit of a hard time. And believe that they're not only don't think that Class E is going to do very well, but that they're basically entitled to just evict them from their spot that they've had reserved for a long ass time. And eventually Akuda gets sick of it and stands up for her friends and herself, pointing out that they won't be so smug once they actually kick their asses in the finals. At which point, one of the members of the Big Five, again I forget his name, but he looks like this. He actually figures out that the people they decided to harass in particular actually have some pretty good academic chops, and that they probably shouldn't be underestimated. So the rest of the Big Five decide to strike up a wager that should they succeed in taking that. First and foremost, if they successfully take a top spot, basically they'll do one request that Class 3E says to them. And whenever they say, they'll even put their life on the line. And as soon as they say that, they realize they probably should have worded their words differently, because immediately all of the students from 3E jump on them and go into full assassination mode. And Nagisa remarks that they probably shouldn't be so willing to put their lives on the line. And with that, the rest of the big five just kind of leave. They realize they messed with the wrong people, but they remark that they'll come to regret it. And at which point they return back to Gakushu Asano and give him a report about what happened. And Gakushu remarks that it's no big deal and that he expects nothing less from them, and points out that this will actually play into their favor. And when the Big Five actually question how they can actually make it play to their favor when they only have one request they can ask of Class 3E, Gakushu Asano then whips up pulls an entire contract out of his ass with a bunch of clauses that basically force Class 3E into absolute servitude. So, yeah, basically they have absolutely no chance of actually winning. And the Big Five are actually pretty impressed, pointing out that, they point out that while he is a bit of a hypocrite and is definitely a little bit scary, they'll follow him to the ends of the earth, and some of them even remark that that there probably isn't very much anybody who can actually challenge him in Class 3E. The scene then cuts to Karma and implies that they're going to face off at some point. So, yeah, it's been firmly established that Karma is a genius, and this next scene actually establishes it, that he's the only one who really isn't taking the study sessions with Korosensei seriously, since, as it's been firmly established, he's pretty much the only one who actually passed during the midterms, and he feels like he's probably good to go. He feels like he's probably going to get a good top spot since he doesn't really need to work hard all that much. And even points out that the reason he doesn't need to work hard is because it's a testament to Korosensei's teaching strategy, and he's actually memorized everything and is actually doing a pretty good job. So yeah, Korosensei realizes that he probably doesn't need to be worried so much about Karma. And the rest of Class 3E are actually pumped up, since not only are they excited about the prospect of possibly shooting off one of Korosensei's tentacles and actually slowing him down a little bit, long enough to actually kill him, but they also point out that if they win, they get to force Class A to do basically whatever they want. So yeah, they're pretty excited about that. Meanwhile, it's finally revealed what Gakuko is actually preparing the test to stump even Class A students. So they're going to have a rough time. Basically, they're going to have a rough time trying to take down the test. And because Gakuko-san desperately doesn't want Class 3E to actually get into the main campus again, so he's very much pushing to make the test as hard as possible and basically rig it against them. Basically, is what he's doing. But meanwhile, while Gakuko is doing that, his son actually reveals that in addition to all of the clauses that are meant to put Class 3E into absolute servitude, there's one clause in particular that he snuck in there specifically to figure out what his father is hiding. He basically wrote up a little clause that says Class 3E has to answer every question that Class A answers them truthfully. So basically, he can ask them questions about what's going on with Class 3E, and obviously they have to tell him about Korosensei and everything that's been going on. And Gakushu is basically going to be able to stick it to his father by pointing out by revealing his secret to him. So yeah, not only does while Class 3E definitely has a lot to lose here, since they don't know that the contract exists, it should also be pointed out that Class 3E also has to basically reveal Korosensei's existence to the rest of the school should they lose, which is going to be an interesting plot development if that comes about. I don't think it will, but considering that there's still another season or so to go, but yeah, that could be an interesting plot development if they follow through with that, and I don't think they will, but it could be interesting. But in any case, yeah. With that, Class 3E goes into finals, and yeah, that's going to be the plot of the episode next time. So, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook and on Twitter in the description below. And also, be sure to check out my Patreon in the description below as well. It's only a couple bucks a month. It really helps me out, and you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks that I'm always saying thanks. So be sure to check this out in the description below as well. But in any case, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!